something that really showed me, why you're such a leader in what you do, and why you're an agent of innovation, and why we wanted to have you on here is in the last couple of days in responding to this crisis. We're letting the medical experts and the scientific experts do their thing and tell us, what their suggestions are. But we also have companies and leaders who have to respond to this crisis. And you put out a really neat infographic on your LinkedIn that really helped people. It's called Culture of Care in the Midst of Crisis: 7 Strategies When Work and Your World is Turned Upside Down. Could apply to probably a lot of situations, but we're right now in this situation. So Kevin, thanks for doing that, and tell us a little bit more about why you did this, and maybe you can walk us through some of those strategies.
Yeah, happy to be here. It is definitely an interesting time out there. So context, ADDO is the Latin word for inspire. And so that's what we want to do for the clients and the customers that we serve. Francisco, many of the groups we work with are a lot larger than ours. So Chick-fil-A, Coca-Cola, the Atlanta Braves, the Baltimore Ravens, these large brands, and they've enlisted us to help them either develop culture internally or build their employer brand externally. So we are by no means the economic expert on or the technology expert on how they should navigate a crisis from a cash flow perspective, or if they're needing people to work from home, how do they do that from a technology perspective? But it's a great opportunity for these organizations to show, kind of put their money where their mouth is and show that they really care. And so that was the heart behind it, was to say, okay, all these things we talk about when things are normal, let's figure out how to apply them in the middle of chaos. So why don't we tackle the first one, and then if you want to talk about the others, we'll go for it. Our first thing we wanted our clients and the other people we interact with to do is really just remember the why they do what they do. So every organization now is passionate about their mission statement or their vision statement or their values. And then what happens a lot of times is kind of things hit the fan and it gets a little bit crazy, and that goes out the window. This is a great time to say, hey, remember that exercise we worked on a year ago where we did our values? Well, one of our values is grit. I'm giving one for, what does it look like to be gritty during this next season? So it's really just, I think when you can continue to make the purpose clear, often mundane activities become far more meaningful. So it's not just, oh, we have to do this, but this is a great opportunity to live out our values.
Yeah, and you actually referenced a book and an author that I read just a few months ago, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. I watched that famous TED Talk he did some years ago on this concept, but you mentioned Simon Sinek, Start With Why, in the top of your infographic here. Tell us a little bit about what that's all about.
Yeah, I mean, for those who haven't seen the TED Talk, you should, as soon as this podcast is over, go watch it. Start With Why, Simon Sinek. But he just says that the best organizations are, everybody kind of knows what they do. The best organizations are very clear about why they do it. And not only are they clear about that, but they lead with that. So, and he talks about organizations like Apple and Harley Davidson. So huge, wide spectrum. But I think this is a great chance. Like right now, one of the jokes I keep seeing on social media is like, I'm getting emails from some company that got my email address 10 years ago that I've never interacted with, telling me how they're responding to coronavirus and COVID-19. So it's kind of a joke, but it's not enough to tell people what you're doing, but to tell them why you're doing it. So it's a great chance if for somebody who doesn't know your mission or your vision or your values, to say, this is what we say we value, and so this is how those values are showing up. I've heard it said before, values are only valuable if they're worth something. So they've got to cost something. And so sometimes we're making decisions that aren't as good for the bottom line right now because it's more in line with our values and what's most important. So it really, at its core, Francisco, is about how do you communicate that? It's not enough to just put it on a wall, but you got to say it and you got to practice it.
And so a lot of the things that Simon Sinek said in that book and in that talk was, a lot of times we think about what we're doing or how we're doing that. And those things in the coming weeks and months as we're responding to this pandemic is changing, what we do and how we do it, or it's being altered, at least in the short term. But why we do it shouldn't be the thing that changes. That should be the constant.
That's exactly right, which kind of goes to our next point, which was about flexibility. And I think the best organizations know what they're willing to be flexible on and what they're not. So that is such a key thing to define. You really should have defined it ahead of time. But if you haven't, what are you willing to be flexible on and what are you not? There's an author in the Atlanta area that says it this way. He says, marry the mission and date the methods. So the mission is what we're married to. That's not changing. Why we do it doesn't change. But the way that we work, especially in a season, may change. And this is a great chance to say, hey, some of these methods that we've used in the past that we felt very strongly about, it's not to say we're not going to go right back to them. And right now, we're willing to adjust the methods. We're not willing to adjust the mission.